reflect upon what we learned last time. And you already answered that question that even when you are busy working at the professional level with your friends and relations, your mind works in a different plane and it keeps that thought that I have to know who am I. That is the way to become a seeker. You never forget that. And it is possible. Anyhow, even if it takes 3 years, 3 years is just like 3 hours.
Yeah.
How many times you were upset since the last session, that also helps you to qualify to become a seeker.
Yeah, I would say like that I'll have moments.
Another point to become a seeker. Bill Gates achieved a rank of becoming a #1 richest guy. And during the same period, he felt that he lived loveless life for 27 years. Do you think it is an achievement? Do you think that it is being super productive in a manner that you had billions of dollars, you have a plane at your disposal, you have 50 cars, you have all the employees, but when you ask, am I satisfied? Am I happy? Answer is no. What kind of this achievement is? So the master says that there are two goals. We have to always, not two goals. One is the desire fulfillment and other is the self-fulfillment. One desire is fulfilled, replaced by another desire. Someday you find that today is being a super productive day. On the other day, the whole day passes in the state of the calmness. You woke up in the state of calmness. In the afternoon you were calm. In the evening you were calm. You went to the bed in the state of the calmness. The whole day passes as if only a few hours have passed and I'm still fresh and relaxed.
Yeah.
That is the rise in awareness. That is the moment of you are moving towards self-fulfillment.
Does that freshness and relaxation come from not being so mentally fatigued?
Answer is big yes. In the first 4 steps, we will understand that the activities that we do at the professional, social, and the family level, if the attitude and the state in the mind is different, the whole day passes full of energy, you are rested, you are calm. But when in the mind, your mind is little bit so-called selfish, it is moving towards desire fulfillment. In the evening you feel tired and you feel fatigued, your mind is almost agitated, you may or may not get a sleep. So that is the state of the mind by which we perform action in our daily life. What is the secret behind it? The secret behind it is that you rise in awareness. You are thinking, speaking with a higher level of awareness. You are not thinking and speaking and acting with ego, the I thought. And that we are going to do in detail in the second step. In the first step, we want to study, acquire, retain the knowledge of the real self and also the not self. What is not real self and what is real self. So if we remain aware throughout the day, whatever is changing in life, first indication that it is not the real self. Wherever you see the change. One, wherever your mind imposes that it is not changing, I have to explore it is changing. My body is changing. But I want body not to change. I want mind not to change, but it is changing. Breath is changing. Outer situations, the world itself is changing. But my mind superimposes a sense of false notion that it should not change. For example, many examples throughout the day. Dad, you have changed. Before saying that you have changed, ask yourself, you have also changed. Dad, you have changed so much. Come on, did you not change? You also changed. So what is changing? That the mind has recognized it is an element of the false self. It has nothing to do with the real self.
Like we change so much, Garish. Like so much. Like I
Yes, when we first think that you have recognized, that's another point of becoming a seeker. When I recognize that everything is subjected to change, then who am I? So the master says that there is one thing that you can name it as a real self that never changes, that is all pervading, that is present everywhere. That is pure consciousness. That never changes. At present, the mind is overwhelmed with the change. And I can tell you, once we live in that awareness, that what is changing is not me. Don't put a label I am to the change. 90% of your challenges the mind has posed will dissolve.
Okay, that's really interesting because
What happened? That wisdom, when you said that I have become smarter over the years, that very smartness was hidden in the real self, manifested through the mind. Mind is still behaving the same way. Sometime it gets upset, sometime it is reacting, sometime it goes into ignorance. Her mind, the nature of the mind is not changing. What has happened? That some knowledge, some wisdom manifested into the intellect and the mind. So the answer, then we should question from where this wisdom have come.
yeah.
That wisdom is nothing but it has come from the real self. Hold on. Now here, our master says, one we say an individual. and the other we say the real self. So once we understand that real self is I am, individual is also I am. But that individual which we declare I am is the false self. And the real self which we realize I am is the real I am. So what is the difference between the two? So that the things becomes clear. So if I give you a mathematical equation, an individual is equal to body, physical body, plus mind, plus impressions, plus feeling, plus emotions, plus all the thoughts, plus I thought, plus consciousness is equal to individual. So what is real self? So real self is equal to pure consciousness minus body, breath, intellect, ego, all the thoughts, all the craziness, all the 200% you have given to you given yourself to somebody, minus. Real self is pure consciousness. Real self, that pure consciousness is all pervading. So now we have two I am constantly working in our life. I have to separate an individual, the false I, from the real I. The moment I learn how to separate and how to perceive, let me go a step further and then I will come back again.
Okay.
That real self, pure consciousness, when I say it is all pervading, permanent, peace, happiness, love and wisdom, it is unchanging reality. It does not need to work. It does not need to think. It does not need to react. No, I did not understand. So let us understand. Do you see me in the presence of sunlight? And do you see in the me and I see you in the presence of the light in the room?
Yeah.
Does the light react?
No.
Does the light react when you leave the room or I leave the room?
No.
Light always remains present. In the presence of the light, you see all the objects. The light does not react. Whether you are present in a room or you are not present in a room. That is the nature of the real self. Now see another difference. That difference helps us to understand that why we have to seek the real self. An individual depends on the real self, the consciousness. The real self is totally independent. It does not depend on the body, breath, mind, intellect, ego, I thought. But individual means body, breath, mind, intellect, feeling, emotion, thoughts, past impression plus I thought. If you remove the consciousness, the individual does not exist.
Yeah.
Let us go deeper, still deeper. An individual, so-called an individual, how I represent an individual, my name, my form, my gender, my achievement, my success, my profession, my feeling, my emotions. This individual dies in deep sleep. It is not existing there. Mm-hmm. But the consciousness exists there. So it means the real self is independent. Individual depends on that consciousness. If the consciousness is not there, it is gone. In coma, individual is gone. Now come closer. we become 100% obsessed with this individual when we are in extreme anger.
Yeah.
We are totally obsessed with an individual that is non-self when I give 200% to someone.
Like,
That has resulted into your anxiety. You couldn't sleep, and couple of days you started thinking of all the nasty thoughts, which has no
like
value at all.
like putting 200% into something.
I would say you are putting 200% to another individual which is also changing. You are putting 200% to a constantly changing identity.
Yeah.
So whatever is changing, you put 200% or 500%, it doesn't make any difference. You are bound to suffer sooner or later.
Yeah.
So when we have that clarity, what we are doing in the first step, that we are understanding this is real self and this is not real self. So we separate. Where we separate in our head. You are in the state of calmness, poise, full of energy. That moment is the moment of the real self. When your mind has stopped thinking of super achieving something in the life, why the real self is the super achievement. I have achieved self-fulfillment and I only earn couple of $1,000 in a month. Those dollars in a month plus the self-fulfillment gives me a total permanent happiness and peace. And
I feel like sometimes I get judged from like my peers.
that pressure
Sometimes.
is coming from the individual self. That pressure
Yeah.
is not from the real self. So
No, I know.
as
I
long
know
as
that.
we chase the individual, it means I follow blindly what the society says. The society changes completely. You know, you achieve something great, your dad will say, what a big deal, he is my son. He will not give any value to you. I tell you frankly. This happens.
Yeah.
And if you have not achieved anything, every time you meet him, they will blame and complain you.
Mm-hmm.
In both the cases, society doesn't allow to live calmly. I can tell you.
Yeah, I agree.
So why to follow the society? Why not follow the higher wisdom?
Yeah.
Let me have the sense of self-fulfillment. Let me not run after the desire fulfillment. It does not mean that will be clear in the second step how to work in my personal, professional, and social life.
Yeah.
Now, see, this individual it always works with the I thought, and that is an ego. That is a personality. Personality means persona. Persona means the mask, Italian word. So the real self is wearing the mask of an individual. I have to uncover. Why we say this journey is a self-discovery? If you go to the literal meaning of discover, dis plus cover means uncover. What to uncover? The layers of an individual, which consist of physical layer, emotional layer, energy layer, mental layer, intellectual layer, ego layer. So when you remove all the layers inside, in deeper state of meditation, you found the real self.
Mm.
And You already understood that real self is independent, first thing. It is independent of anything, any thought, any action, body, mind, intellect, breath, ego. The space inside your room is independent of your room. But that space inside your room is the same space outside your room. It is the same space. Can you divide the space into two? No. So there is another false notion that this real self lives inside the body. Answer is wrong. In that pure consciousness, body lives, mind lives, intellect lives. Did you understand? In that space, infinite space, your house is present, my house is present. We cannot say the space is present in my house.
Interesting. So is that like why Alan Watts, he would say we didn't come into this
he picked up some of the principles of Eastern wisdom and he is expressing it in a halfway so that people will say that he is not teaching Eastern wisdom, because some people have to hide themselves.
like a wave comes out of the ocean.
Yes.
Not in the ocean.
Not in the... Yes, you are understanding clarity. So we have to keep this awareness in the mind. Oh, that is the vast nature of the real self. And
okay, I'm glad that you said that, because I always thought the real self was inside of me, but that's... well, because...
Now, that real self is the pure consciousness which... Now, let me make it clear. The moment you have any manifestation that is recognized by the mind, spoken by the mind, thought of from the mind, real self is present inside. So one Upanishad, now I'm referring to the Upanishad. Later on we will find out which Upanishad.
Okay. So can you say that again?
Now I'm making a statement. So that real self is not the body but in the body. That real self is in the breath but not the breath. It is in the mind but not the mind. It is in the thought but not the thought. It is in the stress but not the stress. It is in anxiety but not the anxiety. Because if I say the real self is everywhere, if I exclude anxiety and stress, then I am doing injustice to the real self. It is also present in the stress, but it is not the stress. How come you are saying this when you say that real self is full of permanent peace and happiness? Oh, the mind has come in between. The mind in delusion has caused the stress, and behind the mind the real self is present. Mind cannot work without the real self. If there is no consciousness, let me make you understand in a different way. I am conscious of the mouse. That is, or I can say I know the mouse. I am conscious of the mouse. I know the mouse. I have the knowledge of the mouse. They all are same thing. I am using the sentence, I am conscious of the mouse. Why? Because I am consciousness. I am conscious of the body because I am consciousness. I am conscious of your anxiety. That's why I am consciousness. I am conscious of my reaction. That's why I am consciousness. Do you see?
Yeah, like I think like you could use also like awareness. Like if I'm
without being aware, I don't know anything. So it means the mind depends on the consciousness to know anything. Mind cannot know anything by itself. How the mind can know anything by itself? In deep sleep, the mind is sleeping, unconscious. It does not know anything. But there is a difference between the dead body and the body that is in sleep. In deep sleep, consciousness is present in the body. In the dead body, the consciousness is out. That I'm leaving that point here, there, because it is explained in 10th or 11th step.
Okay.
in a clarity. So now coming to the knowledge of the reality is the absolute reality. Ultimately, we are reaching to that. Why it is an absolute reality? It is independent. It is all pervading. It is of the nature of peace, happiness, love, and wisdom. It is of the nature of permanent peace and happiness, permanent happiness. But why I use the adjective permanent happiness? I am separating it from the pleasure. The pleasure is short lived. How much time you get a pleasure in sex? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour. That's why we normally say, oh, you start with a foreplay because I'm just crazy. The same thing applies that we go to the restaurant and we said, okay, we will sit for an hour. How much time it takes you to eat the food? Maybe 10 minutes. But we keep on sitting. We engage ourselves in gossiping. We want to extend the short-term pleasure to the long-term, and still it is lost. So why we say the real self is a permanent happiness? In the morning you are happy, in the afternoon you are happy, in the evening you are happy. At the workplace you have a state of the happiness. With the honey you are happy. That happiness never fades away. That is the very nature of the pure consciousness, or that is the very nature of the real self.
But it's a different type of happiness than what most people consider happy.
Another beautiful question: does that happiness comes from the mind? Take for a moment that if that happiness is the property of the mind, I am stressing property of the mind. If the sweetness is the sugar, is the nature of the sugar, then it is always sweet. Whether you put it in a jar, whether you put it in a glass, whether you put it in a cup, whether you put it in a coffee. So if based on the same argument, if you say the happiness is the nature of the mind, then this mind will never get into stress, anxiety, duality, conflict, and problem, because that is the nature of the mind. Can you ever imagine if the nature of the mind is happiness and still it goes into stress? So that is our wrong notion, false notion, that happiness is the nature of the mind.
Okay.
First. Second is, we also realize that the nature, happiness is not the property of pasta. If I like eating pasta, that gives me happiness. Happiness is not the nature of car that I drive. Happiness is not the nature of the house. No object in the world contains the property of happiness because they are inert. Happiness has to be an expression of the consciousness. Mouse does not say, I'm happy with you because you are holding me. It does not say. I superimpose a kind of a short-term pleasure on an object, on the food, on a person, on my honey. I superimpose. I'm saying I superimpose. What I superimpose? I superimpose a false notion. Why I superimpose a false notion? Because I like this mouse. Because I like this mouse, that is why it gives me happiness. Honey, I like you, that is why you give me happiness. Fact is this. Can you get happiness if you dislike honey? Give me, tell me.
Yeah.
You don't. You don't get happiness. Even if he or she is your honey and you like, then it gives. But if you dislike, it does not give you any sense of happiness. Means what? That I superimpose short-term pleasure, which I call happiness, in the objects, people, situation, time, event in the people. So happiness is not outside in the world. Happiness is also not the property of the mind. But I experience happiness. I cannot deny I experience happiness. So that happiness which I experience when the mind comes in contact with a person or a pasta or an object that I like It comes from deep within, beyond the mind, because the real self is of the nature of happiness. We are 100% sure happiness is not the property of the mind. We are 100% sure happiness is not the property of any object, any person in the world. Say for example, your honey has the property of happiness. Only your honey. And everyone recognizes in the world 8 billion people. Do you think that 8 billion people will spare you? They will all chase your honey to grab, because that is the property of happiness.
Yeah.
It is not possible. It is not there. It is a fact. It is a reality. That no object, no person contains the... When I say person, go back. What? Where you go back? An individual and real self.
True.
That individual do not contain the property of happiness. Why, that individual without consciousness is dead, is inert, is matter. Mind is matter, thought is matter, breath is matter, body is a matter. Matter which is inert and unconsciousness, it cannot express happiness.
Correct.
So we are reflecting in our head. Oh, that is, you are talking of that real self which is pervading everywhere, which is not, it is not the thought, but it is in the thought. It is in the body, but not the body. It is outside the body. It is everywhere. It is permanent peace and happiness. So one master defined this real self, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Satyam, it is the real. It is the real Jnanam. It is of the nature of knowledge. When you say, use the word consciousness, consciousness and knowledge are synonyms. We are not talking of knowledge of the mouse. We are talking of the knowledge, real self, knowledge, consciousness. Satyam Jnanam. Knowledge, Anantam, it is infinite. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That real self is of the nature of real. Again, go back, reflect on what is real, false and unreal. I have discussed it many times. False that appears real, but it is not. At a distance, mirage water appears real. When you approach near, means now you are raising your awareness, you want to know, you are exploring. As you approach near to the mirage water, there is no mirage water, it disappears.
Yeah.
One understanding of the false, mithya. And that, so Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So what happens now? Before we go further, we should also understand what happens when the knowledge of the real self is attained. So one of the greatest masters, the Krishna, Gita. Gita is the summary of all the Upanishads. So in the Gita, Krishna says, the seeker who has achieved or attained or realized the real self, awakening, has a permanent state of tranquility and serenity is settled. He is the master of the sense organs and the mind. Before that, mind was the master of our life. Sense organs were dictating us. That is why you gave 200%. Because of your sense organs were controlling you. Oh, so what happens? The self-fulfillment is reached. So what happens after the self-fulfillment is reached? You become more creative in your personal, professional, social and family life. Because of your more creativity and more productivity, You remain completely at poise, calmness, peace. You keep on doing what you are doing in a much calmer way. The life is full of calmness and peace in all the situation, with all the relations. Honey says, I'm leaving you. Thank you, honey. You have helped me evolve until today. Now you are leaving me. But you don't have any idea. You don't have any intention of either leaving or keeping. Why? To whomsoever you say, honey is already separate from you. What is the question of leaving? Tell me which one goes with you. If I die, this house will chase me, computer will chase me. But I say, this is mine, so I have a sense of clinging and attachment. That attachment and clinging is gone. It doesn't mean that you don't take care of these stuff which you use. Everything you use is a play and fun. That is coming in the second step. That once we know the real self, and once we understand, oh, real self is not doing anything, it is simply a presence like the light, then why should I achieve? Because without that consciousness, no activity can be carried out, no thought, no speech, no action. Sentiency does not exist without consciousness.
Yeah.
Because of that consciousness, I'm able to speak, I'm able to move my hand. Right knowledge about the reality, about the real self, requires a sense of non-attachment of the mind. If we keep an attachment in the mind, attachment means emotional dependence. Emotional dependence means when I have a sense of emotional attachment, it creates a sense of I thought. And that I thought develops an ego. And that ego veils the real self. So the entire process masters have understood. So we have to prepare ourselves to live in the state of non-attachment to discover the real self. That is why we say no. On the other hand, you have a greater level of endurance when you have an emotional freedom. When you are emotionally attached, you submit under the pressure, you have a suffering, you have an anxiety, you have a duality, you have a conflict in your mind. So we need a sense of non-attachment. Not only by practice we get a sense of non-attachment, but also by listening and learning again and again and again. One day the mind clicks, oh, this is it. Why am I attached?
Like when you say non-attachment, like non-attachment to what?
And when I am non-attached, or you say detachment, it means there is no sense of emotional clinging.
Okay.
Emotional clinging comes from the likes and dislikes.
Okay.
Again, understand in a different way. By default, the very nature of ignorant mind is to like something and dislike something. It happens at the unconscious and the subconscious level. Now your mind is subjected to that like and dislike about an object or a person couple of times. One aspect. Second aspect, that impression creates a chain of the thought. So when the chain of the thought constantly returns to that object in a person is known as an attachment. But I'm conscious of, now I become conscious of the thinking. I get obsessed. Oh, you are so good. You are Miss Universe for me. Did you understand? You are Miss Universe for me. That girl is nowhere Miss Universe, but you are Miss Universe for me. That is an emotional attachment.
I caught myself last night like having those thoughts about a girl and like, but I was aware I started to become aware. I was almost
That is the way. What happens when you have an emotional freedom? You start laughing.
yeah,
Laughing is emotional freedom.
yeah,
Laughing is emotional freedom. Now you see the result of the emotional freedom versus the emotional attachment. So, what happens? Once you have a sense of emotional freedom, and as you continue the journey, that emotional freedom is settled in your mind. What happens? The intellect takes over your mind. What is intellect? Intellect is knowledge. What is the knowledge? Knowledge is emotional freedom. That takes over the mind. So, anytime the mind goes back to the same emotional clinging because the knowledge returns and you say, thank you, let me have a big laugh. No need to have an emotional clinging. That is a rise in awareness. You clearly separate yourself from the constant changing world outside, including the constant changing mind that is
yeah,
attracted, that has an emotional dependence on one person at one time, second person on the second time. And
yeah,
then you understand the silliness, the craziness of the mind. That state is another level of awareness. You may say it is a choiceless awareness. You may say it is a state of dispassion. It is because of the dispassion that inner happiness comes out, manifest in the mind. And that inner happiness gives you a laugh. Mind, don't go there.
yeah,
It is not permanent, it is constantly changing. That is the importance of listening and learning directly from the teacher. First, it gives you a sense of detachment. Then it results into, if you are reflecting, then it results into a state of dispassion. Now, what happens when you live into the higher level of dispassion? Mind is, you will be amazed that why mind is now normally steady, it is not distracted. You are doing your work naturally. There are hardly 4 and 5 thoughts. You wake up in the morning and your mind reminds you, oh, here is an agenda, naturally. What you need to work today. And you go there and it's done. The whole day your mind remains smooth, calm, and poised. Or even if you receive unwanted, unwelcome thoughts, you are already in a state of dispassion. You don't get attached to it.
mm,
That state of the mind is the mind of a qualified seeker who awakens to the real self. That state of the mind. That state of the mind. Now, see another point in understanding. So, the master says, let us understand in one more way. So, a master says there is 2 types of knowledge. There are only 2 types of knowledge. One type of the knowledge is worldly knowledge. Knowledge of an individual related to the world means I know about my parents, know about gender, sex, profession, money, wealth, stress, suffering, problem, all belongs to the individual in the world. That is the worldly knowledge. And what is the other type of the knowledge? It is the self-knowledge. It is, you can say, the spiritual consciousness. It is the knowledge of the real. There are only 2 types of knowledge in the world. One belongs to what I am not, and the other knowledge is what I am. What I am is of the nature of peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom. Now we have also to validate in our mind or intellect. Now, what is the source of this knowledge of the Eastern wisdom? The knowledge and the source of the Eastern wisdom, first thing, 10,000 years old, the Upanishads, the 3,000 texts, 3,000 masters, and those great masters are still present in the Himalayas. They don't come out of the Himalayas. They live into that state. They validated this knowledge again and again. And that is how the tradition continued. One more thing they say to remove any kind of doubt if the mind is not fully convinced. So they say that we are treating the path of that knowledge which does not depend on any text, tradition, teacher, time, event. It is independent. First thing. Second thing is more important. So first master makes us aware that, oh, we have to learn this knowledge in a tradition, in a master and a seeker tradition. You have to listen and learn from a teacher. Okay, so where I learned, if I am your teacher, I learn from my teacher. So from where my teacher learned, from his teacher, from his teacher, from his teacher, from his teacher. No, tell me who is the ultimate teacher. Who is the ultimate teacher?
The real self.
It is the real self. Why? We have already proved it, that the real self is absolute knowledge. So the teacher who teaches you is a representative of your real self. How cannot you love your teacher?
Is a representative of my real self.
Your real self.
But do I even have a real self?
Yes.
That would seem.
Yes. We all are one real self.
Oh, yeah.
Do you look at it, the way this entire knowledge has been passed. Teacher says the ultimate, no, we have solved the problem, which one is first, chicken or egg. We have already solved it. Who is the ultimate teacher? Ultimate teacher is the real self.
Yeah.
Behind an individual self.
Yeah.
No, you told me that real self does not perform any action. There is no thought, speech, and action. It is independent. It is all-pervading. It is of the nature of peace and happiness. So it means I need not to do anything. No, you have to do lot of practices until you purify the mind. That is a preparatory state. All the practices comes under preparatory phase, where you prepare the mind, you qualify the mind, you become a qualified seeker. And then what happens? When you become a qualified seeker, then the self-inquiry begins. The self-inquiry, you need not to do any practice. One thing, we have to solve this puzzle in the second step. No, but you say that we don't do anything, so we stop doing our professional activities, we stop fulfilling our responsibility. No, you have to act, you have to think, you have to speak, continue your journey in your profession, whatever you are doing, but do it in a better way. Master says we will tell you how to do it, with what attitude you have to do it. The attitude and the state of the mind by which you perform all the activities will separate you from all the activities that you do. All your professional, social, and family activities will become just like a play and a fun. Then you are a best Hollywood actor who plays his role in the world of personal, professional, and social life. Do you think that the Hollywood actor who acts like a criminal and who shows and expresses anger, does he really become angry?
No.
So it means my all professional, social, family actions becomes just like a Hollywood acting. I am not affected. Sometime I fail in my professional pursuit and other time I succeed. I take both the success and the failure with the equanimity of the mind. So any situation outside, any personal, professional, social activities does not leave a scar on my mind and I continue my journey. That is going to be the second step. Why we have to, how we have to do it? What is that? How we can achieve that? That we are doing an action, still I feel I'm not doing any action. It's just like a play and a fun. For a Hollywood actor, he performs an activity, he becomes angry, was agitated, he returns home, knocks the door, he meets his wife, he doesn't continue to remain angry. Oh, that is gone, I have done. Honey, I had acted very well. Director had appreciated me. My anger in the film was marvelous. So yes, so you need an anger to get the things done in your professional life. Be angry, but it does not affect you. You're not carried away by the emotional. That we are going to learn. That is another secret that will happen in the second step. So knowledge and the practice in the beginning should go together. We should reorganize our life where the practice also has some place. Listening and learning should continue. Contemplation and reflection should continue. Now, everything that we discussed until now, there is a role of an intellect. So the mind and the intellect, they are the names of the same entity in us. Do you remember I told you the mind is structurally one, has 4 functions. Mind and the memory, one pair, intellect and the ego or I thought. There are 4 functional aspects of the mind. I'm in stress. The mind is constantly thinking. So now the mind is thinking and it goes into the stress. Intellect is hidden. Why? Because the intellect only can think, oh, come on, you say you are in stress, let you find out what is there. What is the cause of it? The moment you say what is the cause, the I thought also comes, and then we start getting the knowledge. To summarize, as long as this mind dictates over the intellect, it is lack of awareness. It is lack of intelligence. It is emotional dependence. It is clinging. When the mind dictates over the intellect, I am attached. When I am attached, I am attacked. Anywhere, any moment, I am attached, I am already attacked. I am into anxiety or duality or a conflict. I have a dual personality. I lower my self-esteem. I enter into the delusion. I believe the mirage water is true. Don't you see, this guy attacked me? This guy insulted me. I have expected a lot from him. Where you have expected? That question never comes to our mind. Who gives this question? The intellect. The human intellect is free. So what do you mean by free intellect? Free intellect can receive and retain the knowledge, and that intellect give a direction that what action I should do. Oh, I realized I was so deeply attached and obsessed. I was in delusion. Now intellect says, you were in delusion, do you realize? Then you had a big laugh. from the stress, you start laughing. Is there any need to expect a call from her? No, because now the knowledge is already settled. Should I think about her? No. Should I have a good sleep? Yes. That knowledge removes the layer of ignorance.